Welcome to the Film Review Podcast, an official podcast of Filmbook. The Film Review Podcast is a movie review and analysis podcast on the latest theatrically released films, streaming, and film festival movies.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Film Review Podcast, an official podcast of Filmbook. If you are tuning into the Film Review Podcast for the first time, what I do on this podcast is review and analyze a recently released theatrical, streaming, or film festival movie. Find more of the Film Review Podcast episodes on Filmbook, that's film-book.com, by using the search term, The Film Review Podcast. If you're listening to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or another podcast service, please rate and review this episode. If you're listening to this podcast on YouTube, please like our video, subscribe, and consider becoming one of our patrons on Patreon at patreon.com/filmbook. Your support helps us create more engaging content. In this episode of the Film Review Podcast, I will be reviewing the film Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 is directed by Christopher McQuarrie, written by Bruce Geller, Eric Jendresen, and Christopher McQuarrie, and stars Tom Cruise, Hayley Atwell, Ving Rhames, Simon Pegg, and Rebecca Ferguson. This is a movie review for Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, and there will be spoilers. Don't worry about seeing Barbie or Oppenheimer quite yet. You've got the best action film of the summer to witness first. That would be director Christopher McQuarrie's spectacular, tense thrill ride, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Top Gun: Maverick got quite a few accolades last year, and McQuarrie's seventh Mission Impossible film is even stronger than last year's Top Gun picture, which went on to earn several Academy Award nominations. Expect McQuarrie's globe-trotting new roller coaster ride to walk away with at least one technical Oscar in the categories of visual effects or sound effects editing. This new picture opens with a roughly half-hour-long pre-credit sequence that sets the stage for the storyline centered on a key which exists in two pieces, which many characters will try to get their hands on for the greater good during the course of the picture's nearly 2 hours and 45 minutes running time. Cruise is cast once again as Ethan Hunt, who gets a self-destructing message that offers him the opportunity to accept a mission that will be the most important adventure he's taken on, and probably one of the most dangerous ones he's ever faced. As previously stated, a complex key that has two parts to it drives the action. We've had two-part devices in Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and The Fast and the Furious 9. But this new film makes the most out of this concept out of these three movies. It will take a lot of trickery and other skills to keep the lives of Ethan's IMF team, Luther and Benji, safe from the villains who populate this new sequel. The movie opens underwater as a group of men find themselves in the middle of a nightmare when they lose their lives for a specific reason that ultimately leads to the action taking place in an Abu Dhabi airport that offers some truly clever fun. Ethan is the master of disguise and sends those who are in pursuit of him off in a whole different direction at the airport while playing games with master thief Grace. Benji goes after a duffel bag in the interim, but when things get overly complicated, our heroes must go on the run. The main villain here is the menacing Gabriel. Other characters to keep a close eye on include the White Widow and Paris, the well-cast Pom Klementieff. One of the best scenes in the film is when the movie takes the storyline to Rome, where Ethan and a key character must escape their pursuers in a Fiat. Driving around, sometimes in circles, and ultimately handcuffed to the wheel, Ethan, alongside Grace, gets into some wild scenarios that must be seen to be appreciated. Rebecca Ferguson appears as Ilsa Faust, a character whose life Ethan must try to save at a key moment inside an upscale nightclub. Faust ultimately faces off with Gabriel at a central moment within the picture that is certainly going to keep audiences' hearts racing. Ethan is previously asked to choose which life he wants to save more, Ilsa Faust's or Grace's. Needless to say, Ethan finds the choice quite difficult to make. This action sets the stage for the piece de resistance, which comes after Ethan rides a motorcycle to board a train passing through the Austrian Alps, on which Grace disguises herself as the White Widow to get the valuables all these characters so desperately seek. All the scenes incorporated into the last hour of the film are absolutely fantastic. Ethan and his team run afoul of some dishonorable characters, to be sure, but ultimately, it's the way that some of our principal characters must try to survive which becomes so terrifically entertaining to watch. When the aforementioned train is displaced by a bomb that blows up the tracks, Ethan and Grace must literally climb and swing for their survival as train cars fall off a cliff. Talk about great cliffhangers at the movies. There are so many phenomenal set pieces here. Take your pick. Some audience members may prefer the Fiat scenes, while others will love the scenes set on board the train in which Grace dons the disguise of the White Widow. The nightclub and airport scenes are equally stellar and are edited with terrific precision. Tom Cruise never seems to age, yes, but his physically demanding and charismatic turn as Hunt is nothing short of perfection. Hayley Atwell is a perfectly matched co-star for Cruise, and these two have terrific on-screen chemistry in a non-romantic way. Vanessa Kirby once again proves she's a talent to take seriously with her performance here as well. Morales is a villain who keeps the movie tense throughout. You won't want to mess with Gabriel, but can our heroes pull the wool over his eyes? And even if they do, can they survive the havoc Gabriel leaves behind? See the movie for the answers. Ferguson also gets some moments to shine in the picture, especially in the scene where she faces off with Gabriel. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 is a crackerjack Hollywood blockbuster that is most entertaining to behold in its spectacle. Setting the stage for its conclusion in the next picture, which could be equally perfect, director McQuarrie keeps the momentum of his new film moving at a fast clip. It's unnoticeable that the film is almost 3 hours long because of how enjoyable it all is. Watching Ethan Hunt in action is definitely one of the biggest and best highlights of this summer movie season, which is shaping up to be one of the most memorable ones ever, with a great film like Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 as the centerpiece of it all. Don't miss this edge-of-your-seat blockbuster. Accept this mission immediately for a film which certainly will not self-destruct at the box office anytime soon. Those are my thoughts on Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. What are yours? Thank you for listening to this episode of the Film Review Podcast. Be sure to rate this episode, like this episode, and subscribe. Thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Film Review Podcast. Find more of the Film Review Podcast on Filmbook, on all major podcast services, and on YouTube at Filmbook Podcast.